Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Until It Ran Into Me. Before we get into this episode, I just wanted to say to please contact the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988 for support 24/7 for mental health, substance use, and more. I also want to insert a trigger warning for mentions of suicide, depression, and trauma. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode. Right off top, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has interacted with any sort of social media that I have for this podcast. For anybody who's listened to me, for anybody who shared the podcast with their friends, family, etc. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it. I'm really loving this. I'm really falling in love with this process of creating this podcast, as well as interacting with you all and getting feedback from you. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It's very much appreciated. Also up top, I want to say that I am currently sick, so if my voice cracks or sounds weird at any point, that is the reason, and I do apologize. So, episode 2 is titled Anxiety and Depression Hold Hands. As mentioned in the introduction episode, the first episode, I said that I started experiencing depression, anxiety, around 7-8 years old, that I believed 100% that it stemmed from my childhood and incidences that occurred with my family, primarily my parents. Anxiety is such a complex thing. Depression is such a complex thing. There's so many layers to each. I can't recall a time that I didn't have one without the other. They both have overlapping symptoms. They both impact personal, professional, and social functioning. They both have shared risk factors. They both co-occur. They kind of run together, and that's why the title of this episode is Hold Hands, because to me, they've always held hands with each other throughout my life. So I want to start off with anxiety. The official definition of anxiety is an emotion characterized by an unpleasant state of inner turmoil and includes feelings of dread over anticipated events. The difference between anxiety and fear is defined as the emotional response to a present threat, whereas anxiety is the anticipation of a future one. There are multiple different kinds of anxiety. There's generalized anxiety, there's panic disorder, there's social anxiety, phobia-related anxiety, and PTSD, also known as post-traumatic stress disorder, and OCD, which is obsessive-compulsive disorder. Generalized anxiety is when a person experiences excessive anxiety or worry that causes issues in their everyday life. Panic disorders are a fear of recurring panic attacks, which are unexpected episodes of overwhelming emotional and physical symptoms that can cause feelings of impending doom. Social anxiety is a general fear surrounding social situations. Phobia-related is having excessive and sometimes irrational fear or worry around a specific object or situation. PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, develops after a person experiences or witnesses a terrifying event that can lead to upsetting flashbacks, nightmares, and physical or emotional reactions toward anything that resurfaces memories of the traumatic event. OCD, finally, or obsessive-compulsive disorder, is a person has persistent, unwanted thoughts or sensations, obsessions, that drive them to perform certain behaviors over and over again, compulsions. Anxiety has multiple different symptoms, both physical and mental. So I want to talk about some of those and then get into my personal experiences with anxiety. Some physical symptoms of anxiety include increased heart rate, hyperventilation, sweating, trembling, fatigue, buzzing, stomach pain, trouble sleeping, decreased or increased appetite, bladder problems, heart palpitations. Some of the mental symptoms of anxiety include but are not limited to overthinking or racing thoughts, trouble concentrating, irritability, restlessness. Now, anxiety for me began when I was around 7 or 8, as mentioned. My symptoms as a kid varied. I still have some that are the same, that have followed me into adulthood. But there are ones that I have now in adulthood that are new. In childhood, I can only remember a few symptoms that I had. A big one that I had when I was a kid was I had stomach pain. All of my stress, all my anxiousness would go straight to my stomach. It would lead to really bad stomach aches. I would be in the bathroom, TMI I know, but I would be in the bathroom for forever because I was so anxious. I also used to bite my nails a lot as a kid. Nail biting was a big thing. I do not do that anymore. But I would just gnaw on my fingernails. I never had any nails. Another one was also skin picking. This one has unfortunately followed me into adulthood. I do this to this day. It's something that I have really worked on, but it's a hard habit to break. It's basically just picking at pimples, or if you have scabs or bumps on your skin. It kind of lets you disassociate. So those were my primary childhood anxiety symptoms. Now, adult symptoms of anxiety. I still do the skin picking thing, unfortunately. I deal with racing thoughts, overthinking situations, overthinking things that haven't happened yet, things that I'm anticipating. I have heart palpitations. I have a racing heart primarily when I lay down at night, which is not a good time, because I have to get up early for work. Usually I don't fall asleep till very early in the morning. I have had bladder issues too. I've had those for, it's been a minute now. Probably a lot within the last year. Another symptom that I have as an adult, and I didn't know what this was until one day I came across, randomly a TikTok video on my For You page came up. And they were talking about body buzzing, where you literally feel like your body is buzzing. My hands get also very shaky. It's the weirdest feeling, but it happens every single time I have anxiety. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know other people dealt with it until I saw that video, so it kind of felt nice to know that, I'm not the only one. This isn't just some weird singular thing that I deal with. So yeah, those are some of my symptoms of anxiety. I also want to add that I have never gone the medicated route for managing my anxiety, for a multitude of reasons. Personally, I believe that whatever works for you, works for you. I don't see anything wrong with anxiety medication. What holds me back from it is, I have done research into it, and some of the side effects kind of freak me out. So I'm very hesitant to go that route. Also, as I mentioned, addiction runs rampant on both sides of my family, so that is a big one too. I've been like that my whole life though with meds. I'm afraid to take anything because of that. So that's just my personal reasons. Whatever works for you, works for you. I also personally believe that anxiety can be managed holistically, naturally. I found little ways, little cheat codes, if you will, to ease mine personally. And some of them are very weird. They're very little things that make a huge impact. A few of my tricks, if you will, for managing my anxiety there's a few. One is journaling. I'm a big journaler. I've been a journaler for, is that a word, journaler? I've been journaling for a majority of my life, since I was probably like 12, 11. I quit doing it for a while, because an ex of mine read my diary, so it kind of ruined it for me for a little bit. It was a very violating feeling, and I'm still kind of easing into it in a way. I'm anxious about journaling in a way. That's a great way to put it. But in the end, it does help to just kind of dump all my thoughts onto a piece of paper. I've also always been naturally better at explaining my feelings by putting them down on paper as opposed to verbalizing them. You can probably tell by this podcast. I kind of get tangled up in words when I try to say them aloud, and they just flow so naturally and easily when I put them to paper. Another big one for me recently for managing my anxiety is walking. Physical movement as a whole is crucial, and if I had to rank these, I would definitely put walking / hiking / any type of physical activity at the very top. It would definitely be number one. Thing I do too is chewing gum. Tends to help. I think it's because my brain focuses on the gum, the act of chewing the gum. It's always really helped me. I guess it distracts me in a way. So I do that pretty much every day. But yeah, those are ways that I manage my anxiety. And I would love to hear how you guys manage yours, if anxiety is something that you struggle with, deal with. I'm always open to learning new ways. So please feel free to send me a DM, comment, what have you, about yours, because I'd love to hear them. Now, all of that is based around generalized anxiety. Now, my social anxiety is a whole other beast on its own. It is kind of more difficult to manage, difficult to find tricks to deal with it. It really just involves a lot of me just ignoring the anxiety and just pushing forward, which sometimes that does help. That's adequate. Some challenges with social anxiety are one-on-one conversations, public speaking, group interactions, eating or drinking in front of others, being assertive. Sometimes I tend to avoid any type of social interaction whatsoever. My job is very social. I work in customer service, so that's a challenge all on its own. I think with social anxiety, it's like the whole world, you feel like the whole world is just watching everything that you do and like dissecting every emotion that you have and things that you're doing, and in reality they probably don't give a shit. They probably really don't care. But to you, it's like you're in a cage and everybody is staring at you and dissecting everything that you do, every emotion, every movement, everything. And I was reading an article recently about the things that we do in situations that can't be avoided, the safety behaviors that we use. One of mine, probably the top number one spot, is headphones. I would wear headphones all day long out of my house if I could. I wear them all the time pretty much anyway. They're a great way to avoid situations. They're a great way to just stay inside yourself. And that's my number one security blanket, so to speak. The older I get, the more I realize all of the things that I've missed out on because of my anxiety. It's been a roadblock in a lot of opportunities. Relationships I maybe could have had with people. Things I should have said that I didn't say because I was too afraid to speak up. There's definitely a lot of things that I know anxiety has taken from me. And now for the second part of this podcast episode, let's talk about depression. The definition of depression is a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness and loss of interest. And there are also various symptoms of depression as well. Some of the symptoms for depression include loss of interest, insomnia or sleeping too much, tiredness, lack of energy, reduced appetite or increased cravings, trouble concentrating, making decisions or thinking, feelings of worthlessness or guilt, memory difficulty, isolation, and unfortunately and sadly, suicidal thoughts, suicide attempts, and suicide. Now, I want to say this because this is the biggest thing that I deal with when it comes to depression. And I want to make this very clear, but I'm going to say it because I want everybody to hear this and take it in. Isolation does not help. Isolation makes everything worse. It may feel comfortable, it may feel secure to you, but it is none of those things. There is no positive outcome to that. And it's not going to make you get better. I used to be guilty of doing that. And then I saw a video one day. Pretty sure it was TikTok, because the internet can be such an abyss of just misinformation and absolute bullshit, but it does have its moments that it will give you an aha moment where it'll make something click in your brain, and for that I am thankful. And I feel like nobody really talks about how the phone is the problem. And like I said, the internet can be an abyss and full of just absolute ridiculousness. It can also offer a lot of insight to things, and it can be a positive place. I think that with social media and the constant comparisons that we do with ourselves and other people, that is not healthy at all in any way, shape, or form. Seeing what people are doing all the time, every day, at all times is not healthy, and it does not help depression. It does not help mental health if you're in a certain mindset. So I would definitely say that less screen time is something that I myself am trying to implement in my own routine every day. I just absolutely believe that social media is a contributing factor, a major contributing factor to depression, to people that struggle with depression. And also one of the ways that I personally have used to help with depression is I am a firm believer, utilizer of the block button. I think that getting rid of anything that drains you, that makes you feel bad about yourself, that doesn't bring any kind of light or positivity or happiness to you, you need to get rid of it, and that has helped immensely, personally for me. So I definitely recommend that. And just like anxiety, depression has made me miss out on a lot of things. It's made me ruin a lot of things. It's made me not be as far in life as I should be. It's just hindered so many things, and it's made me miss out on, possible relationships I could have had with people. It's made me miss out on job opportunities. It's made me miss out on so many different aspects of life. Friendships I wanted to have that I just wasn't confident enough to go into because of how I'm perceived. Things of that nature. I'm very disappointed in myself that I didn't get this taken care of when I was younger. I think that, I exhibited signs of both of those things at such an early age, and I wish my parents would have been more proactive in getting me the help that I needed, because I clearly needed it. And there were so many memories I can think of where it was so obvious what was going on, but I felt like I was overlooked or it was ignored. I don't know. I can't speak for them, but it's definitely frustrating, and I think I'll always feel that way. I would be in a depressive episode, and I would be shut down or withdrawn. I would be called a brat, a bitch, and I needed help. I was a kid, and I needed help, and I didn't get it. This next thing is something that I debated talking about in this episode, but I think it's definitely necessary. Suicidal thoughts, suicide. Personally, I have been there. It was a very long time ago when I was a teenager, when I lived with my mom and my grandma. They were both very heavily into drugs, and I was kind of just in the center of it all. I was 16, 17, saw things I shouldn't have seen, heard things I shouldn't have heard. It was a very toxic household, obviously. A lot of fighting, just the worst people coming in and out of that house that were their quote-unquote friends. I was in a very dark place. I was in a very, very deep depression, and I considered that. I kind of had an idea of how I would do it. It's just a very, very dark place to be in. As mentioned in the beginning of this episode, please reach out and use resources if you have had these thoughts, if you know someone who's had these thoughts. I think I'll end up going into more detail when it comes to that time in my life in another episode by itself. It was a very formative time in my life. It was a very traumatic time in my life. And I think briefly mentioning it on here, on this episode, does not fully explain or express what that time in my life did to me and the effects it still has today. So, that will be covered sometime in the future. And that is episode 2 of Until It Ran Into Me. I know that was such a heavy way to end things, I'm sorry. Oof. Thank you so much for tuning in, for giving me your time, giving me a chance. I hope you stick around, because there's so much more to come. Just kidding, that's not the end. This is Brittany in the editing room. I just wanted to let you guys know that I have updated my update frequency on Apple Podcasts. And I've listed it also elsewhere, that my updating schedule will now be monthly, just to be safe for now. So yeah, that's it, I promise. Bye! Thank you for tuning into this episode of Until It Ran Into Me. Listen to new episodes and other news. You can visit my website at buzzsprout.untilitranintome.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Until It Ran Into Me Podcast. And in my bio on Instagram, you can find my link tree that leads to all of my other social media platforms that I'm on. So please give those a follow. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time.